Thank you. Thank you, church, once again. Thank you, Sister Marva. Thank you for this privilege given to me to share with my brothers and sisters here. I call this is a safe zone because this is home. Yes, we know each other. And so when we talk to each other and we're talking from Christ, we have more confidence, whatever we're talking about, we are more comfortable. And so we're going to talk from Jesus. Yes. So before I start, I would like to say something funny. I had two men sitting in a plane. So when the flight was about to take off, there was a man sitting on the right. He prayed and made a sign of cross. And so the man sitting on the left side asked him, "Hey, sir, are you a pastor?" And he said, "Yes." So I have a question for you. So the story about Jonah, that he was in the fish belly for 3 days, do you think it's true? So the pastor said, well, the Bible is truth. So everything in it that we believe that is from God and is true. So the man on the left side said, well, we need a proof from the man himself, Jonah. So what do we do? So the pastor said, well, when I get to heaven, I will ask him. And then the man on the left side asked him, so what about if he's not in heaven? So the pastor turned and looked at him and said, ask him when you get to hell. That's why we have to watch what we say. So the title of my message this evening is Speak Like Jesus. Speak like Jesus. Because Jesus always spoke life into being. Jesus spoke spirit into being. Jesus spoke power into believers and even unbelievers. Jesus spoke uplifting spirit into his followers, people that he came across or came into contact with, and anyone who crossed his path, he spoke spirit into them. Jesus always spoke encouraging spirit into people. Jesus spoke kind words, compassion words, motivational words, destiny-changing words, and as we all know, there are many more that we can say from the Bible. Now, let's read John chapter 6, verse 63. Why am I saying Jesus spoke spirit into people? I should be saying Jesus spoke words into people. When you read John chapter 6, verse 63, it says, it is the Spirit who gives life. The flesh profit nothing. The flesh profit nothing. The word, Jesus, this is Jesus speaking to his disciples. The words that I speak to you are spirit, and they are life. So this is not from me. This is from Jesus speaking to us. So now, if you look at the words of Jesus Christ, the words of Jesus Christ are always life-changing and timeless. When Jesus spoke, lives were transformed, and the trajectory of life forever altered. It never came back to the same. Amen. Jesus stated that he is always the life, the truth, the way, and the life. So Jesus is telling us that we should speak like him. Pastor Dan has said that his dad will always remind him one thing again and again, and he will say that he will drum it into him until it becomes embedded in him. Yes, we go to church. We listen to preaching. We read our Bible. Why do we keep coming every Sunday, every Wednesday? Because we need to hear it again. I remember that was even 2 weeks ago. I coached my daughter's soccer team. So I was telling the older one, I said, the reason that I want you to do good in soccer is that I know that you have the ability, you have the skill, but I want you to pay attention to certain things. And I tried to tell her this, that, and that. And then she told me, that you always tell me that. Why are you still telling me? And I said, why do we always go to church? Because we went to church one Sunday, we heard what Pastor Dan said, we are good to go. No, we have to go back so that it will remind us, we have to be reminded that we need to speak like Jesus. Now, if you want to speak like Jesus, you have to be like him. The good thing is, when Brother Alex was preaching last Wednesday, he said, because of Jesus, we have access to the throne of grace. Because of Jesus, so we have the Spirit. Now, Pastor Brian Gray also preached that, thank God that God sent his son, and his name is what? Jesus. He came for us. So, the Spirit that dwells in Jesus Christ, the Spirit that raised Jesus Christ from the dead, the same Spirit is given to us. If we read John chapter 14, verse 16 to 18. Now, Jesus speaking, he said, if you love me, keep my commandments, and I will pray the Father, and he will give you another helper, that he may abide with you forever. The Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive, because it neither sees him nor knows him. But you know him, we Christians, for he dwells with you and will be in you. I will not leave you orphans. I will come to you. So this is when Jesus Christ was ascending into heaven. He was promising, because the disciples, as we are, when Pastor Dan leaves here to go to do mission work, we feel like, oh, the church has ended. No, but Sister Mava is still here. We can still come. Yes. And so Jesus Christ living, they thought, oh, Jesus is living, so what else? Which we know Peter wanted to go back to fishing. But he promised them that when he goes, he will ask his Father to send them a helper. And that helper will dwell in them. And through that helper, it will enable them to be able to do the work that he said, you will do more than what I did if you do it in my name, so that the people will also know that you are my people. So Jesus, same Spirit that raised Jesus Christ from the dead, the same Spirit that helped Jesus Christ to do all his work, to talk to people, healing, casting demons, and everything. We have the same Spirit in us. So far as we are born-again Christians, and we call ourselves believers. Now, sometimes people will say, well, I'm a human, so my salvation can go that far. No. Salvation, when you are saved, you are saved forever. Unless what Sister Mava once said, it depends on who saved you. Then you are in trouble. But if you are born again, and Pastor Dan said, the moment you are born again, the Spirit comes into you. When you have the Spirit, that's it. All you have to do is to work on it. Like Paul wrote to Ephesus. He said, you have your salvation. Now work on your salvation. We don't work for our salvation, but we work on it to get better. Amen. So the same Spirit dwells in us. So we don't have excuse to say that I can't do it. Humanly, it's impossible. Yeah. But so far as we have Jesus Christ in us, thank God he sent his son, Jesus. And so through Jesus, we should be able to do whatever he directs us. Yeah. And the good thing that I have experienced through my experience observation, I know that when you listen to him and you do what he says, he will always take care of you. Yeah. He will never leave you orphan, like he said. Never. All we have to do is we have to try and activate Jesus' Spirit in us to help us to speak to our own people. You can't just say, I'm going to go home and tell my spouse the peace of my mind. Jesus will not say that. It's not Jesus. That is your human flesh. And then remember, they say, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So if you have Jesus sitting here, he's always going to influence you. But sometimes too, we have Jesus sitting here and we have our emotions sitting here. So before Jesus will come this way, our emotions are already out. We can't do that. Keep your emotions in your belly, Jesus in your heart, so that it can cross the line. Jesus is good. Jesus is good all the time. I have experienced a lot that I know if you speak like Jesus, everybody want to listen to you. This morning, my first hour was just people coming to my office because they want to hear me talk to them before they start their day. And so the administration assistant came to me and said, she's new. She said, my former place, our director will ask her to go to the gym and do a little deep breathing exercise before we start our day, 15 minutes. But the way everybody want to listen to you, I want to propose this to our director here, that every morning he should give you like 10 minutes so that you can just talk to us before we start our day. And I said, wow. I said, it's only Jesus. Because too, I even have an accent, and they still want to listen to me. That's amazing. It takes only Jesus. It takes only Jesus. And one thing that I also have experienced is that whatever we say can become a burden on us. It can follow you for years. I quite remember Jonathan Jaramillo is probably 9 years now, right, Ben? And we went to Pastor Tim. Yeah, you were there. We went to his birthday. He was like 2 years old. And they were playing basketball. So when I got there, it was Reverend Kenneth Villarreal, Pastor Tim, Ben, and Jonathan Jaramillo. So they were playing basketball, and then I look at them, and Michael Yulik said, oh man, I used to be able to jump like this, but I can't jump anymore, my hamstring. And it came from my mouth. I said, as a therapist, human body, I know everything about human body. I said, because you don't stretch. And I said, the moment I said that, I was going to say something more to give him at least some intervention. But I didn't, something actually happened. So we were all taken away. On the way going home, the Holy Spirit convicted me. It's like, that didn't come out right. And so I was determined to, when I go to church Sunday, I have to meet him and at least tell him something good. But you know how the Holy Spirit can also make you face your consequence. I never come across him. It took weeks. I was just waiting for an opportunity where he would even say hi so I can bring it up. But I carried this for a long time. Seriously. And so the day I was able to come across him to talk to him, and then I said, how's your hamstring? And he just said, it's still the same. And I said, okay, I can help you. So I said, God, thank you. He hasn't done anything, so I can still be valuable to him, to make it up. You see, it became a burden. I was carrying this for weeks. The same, I heard another story from a Monsignor in Catholic Church and a new priest. So they were in Africa. They were in a small town, but they ministered to villages. One of the villages, there's a river crossing the road. And so there was this disabled person, a cripple. Anytime that he's going to the other town, he will go all the way, crawl the way. We don't have wheelchairs, we don't have the cars or bicycles, tricycles that he can use. So he will go all the way to where the river is and then wait for somebody to just carry him across. So when it happened that the Monsignor and the new priest who has come for him to mentor him, when they got there, as a new priest, back in Africa, when you are a priest, you can even drive on a one-way. because you have all the privileges. And so he thinks, oh, since he's a priest, everybody's going to worship him. But Monsignor went down, carried this man across the river, and this new priest criticized Monsignor for doing that, because you're going to go and minister to people, but you have a little dirt on your cassock. And so Monsignor said, that's part of the job. This new priest worked for a while. 20 years later, he was being also ordained as a Monsignor. And so they asked him, all these 20 years passed, what are some of the experiences that you want to share with us? And the first thing that he said was, the first time they were going to this village, narrated the same story, how Monsignor carried this cripple across the river, but he thought they should be carried across the river, not Monsignor doing that. But he has learned to know that we came to serve, but not to be served. But the point was, Monsignor said, the senior Monsignor told him, oh, so you've been carrying this for the past 20 years? 20 years, carrying the whole thing, because he's waiting for a day that will be given opportunity to make it up. So we have to watch what we say, because it can become a burden. It can become a load. You can carry this. It can become a distraction. We just have to. Because, yes, can we speak like Jesus? Yes, we can speak like Jesus, because we have the Spirit of Jesus that lives inside of us. It's like you having a cell phone in your pocket. You want to communicate. I like to give examples. I want to communicate with people, so I go and buy a cell phone, put it in my pocket, and then I walk around and say, oh, I'm communicating with people. I'm communicating with people. I'm talking to people. I'm not doing anything. I have to take the phone, dial, and talk to somebody on the other end to show that I'm communicating. Same way, we have the Spirit of Jesus sitting right here. Why don't we use it? And that's why we are here this evening, so that I can remind me too that Jesus dwells in me. And with Jesus, I can speak life into people. We know of the story when Lazarus was dead. 4 days. When he actually got a message, he waited 2 days, and then he passed for 4 days. He went there. He spoke life into his body. He came out. Probably we might not be able to speak and bring dead body into life, but in a situation where you feel like there's dead situation here, what is going on, there's no life. But with Jesus, we can speak life into that. We can quench the fire. If we have the faith and we know that Jesus is in us, we can even speak healing to people, because Jesus did that. He healed a whole lot of people. We have the Spirit. I have a lot of, Pastor Dan would say, witnesses to support what I'm saying. If we look, Luke chapter 8, verse 43 to 56, we saw how Jesus healed the woman with the blood. For 12 years, she touched him. Jesus turned, looked at him, and said, be cheerful, for your faith has healed you. We have the same Spirit. Same Spirit. I quite remember Pastor Dan with his double knee replacement, taking him 14 days to heal. One knee takes like 6 months for people to recover. It's just that he has the faith in me. And so whatever Jesus tells us to do, I was telling him things that I don't think it came from me. I would tell him, and then he would do it. And I say, hey, we were successful. That was a good thing. And so anytime I see him, the Spirit always talks to us, but we don't listen. That even brings me back to one of my preaching. I said, the voice of truth. When you spend time with Jesus, when he speaks, you always hear. Because most of the time we hear so many voices going on around you, but there's always Jesus speaking in that. but we have to be cognizant with that. We have to be familiar with that. And if we hear, we should speak it, because Jesus said, I speak what I hear from my Father. We have access to the throne room of grace. We have access to the Father. And so whatever he gave Jesus, he said we are heirs of it too. Why don't we take advantage of that? I feel like we need just to talk. I'm talking from experience and from my observation. Because we can't just get up and then talk about our own people and not talking life into them. Because the Bible says the tongue speaks life and death. So why do you want to speak death in my life? Come on. I might give you a ride one day if I'm not, yeah. So speak life. Speak life. We're supposed to speak life. Yes, sometimes our human nature gets in the way, but come on, we can do this together. Amen. We can do this together. We can do this. We can do this. We can do this. I was reading Proverbs chapter 10, verse 19. And he says, in the multitude of words, sin is not lacking. But he who restrains his lips is wise. When we try to talk too much, we end up causing trouble, causing sin. Because this is what when we have meetings and we're talking, I try to tell my co-workers, I said, when we are talking about something, you don't just say something because you want to say something. You say something when you have something to say, which is valuable. It's more helpful. But instead of just saying something, you make situation worse for everybody. And sometimes, too, if you read Luke chapter 23, verse 7. Luke 23, 7. Okay, this was about Jesus. Luke 23, 7. And as soon as he knew that he belonged to Herod jurisdiction, they were talking about Jesus, he sent him to Herod, who was also in Jerusalem at that time. Now when Herod saw Jesus, he was exceedingly glad, for he had desired for a long time to see him, because he had heard many things about him. And he hoped to see some miracles done by him. Then he questioned him, Jesus, with many words, but he answered him nothing. Let's underline that. And he answered him nothing. We'll come back to that. And the chief priests and scribes stood vehemently accused him. Then Herod, with his men of war, treated him with contempt, mocked him, arrayed him in a gorgeous robe, and sent him back to Pilate. That very day, Pilate and Herod became friends with each other, for previously they had been at enemy with each other. You see, if you read verse 9, he said, part B, but he answered him nothing. They asked Jesus, at that very particular time, Jesus has the power, he has the authority, he has everything to even to shut their mouth. But he did not say anything. Out of his obedient silence, even enemies made alliance. That's the spirit we have. That's the spirit that is in us. That's the spirit. So let's use it. We don't have to have the final say in everything. We can just look at it, smile, and move on. That's what Jesus would do. Speak like Jesus. We need to speak like Jesus because we have the spirit that lives inside of us. I just want to dwell on Speak like Jesus. That's our take-home message. Speak like Jesus. Speak like Jesus. When you read, let me see here, more witnesses. Proverbs 15, verse 1. It says, a soft answer turns away wrath, but a hard word stirs up anger. Why do you want to make the day hard for yourself? Yeah, like I remember Kenneth Villarreal saying, he said, I want to tell you, life is hard. Life is without nothing, it's hard. Why do you want to add more to it? Or add more to your other people's plate? Come on, let's be like Jesus. Because we can't come to the church room and listen to Pastor Dan, Pastor Tim, Pastor Bert every Sunday, every Wednesday, and still live here and go back and tell people our peace of mind. That's not right. That's not nice. We need to speak like Jesus. Be like Jesus. You see, you didn't make yourself. God and his son Jesus made you. So they are your maker. It's like me, if my father tells me to do something, I'll do it. Because when I go back and I need money and I ask, because I was obedient, he will take care of me. Same way, God is saying, speak like my son, because that's why I brought my son to you. He sent his son. His name is Jesus. He sent his son to us. He said, be like him. Speak like him. And because he is telling us that we should do like his son, speak like my son, he will make provision for us not to be wanting. Like Sister Yadora was saying, God made a promise that if we keep his house out of debt, he will also keep us out of debt. And she said it was a promise. And God promised, always does his promise. Yeah, that's one thing I have also learned is that there's one thing God cannot do. One thing God cannot do. He can never lie. Amen. He can never lie. So when he says, do it and I'll help you, come on, brothers and sisters. Yeah. That's why I said today, the Wednesdays are safe zone. It's home. We can talk. We can talk. We need to speak to people like Jesus will speak. Because he says, everything that we say at the end will be judged, will be accounted for. At that time, you can't give excuse. We need to start from here and get better. So when we get there, we are all in work in progress. When we get there, we'll be able to say, Pastor Dan will say, God will say, well done, my son Samuel. I'll be glad that I can make it there. So please, especially in the church room, when we don't talk to each other like Jesus, that's not good. We need to do better than that. Because the Spirit bear witness to whatever we say. You might think you are by yourself or you are outside the church room, but the Spirit is always bearing witness. And God is all-knowing. He knows everything. We can never hide anything from him. Even before you think about it, he's already know. But he said, my son, Spirit in you will enable you to speak like him. So let's speak like Jesus to your people. Workplace. As the word is looking at us, the way we speak. As the policeman will say, whatever we say will be heard against you. Whatever you say out there, they will turn around and say, you said this, but you are doing contrary. When people say that to us, it's, to me, when I hear stuff like that, that was hard. So help me, God. Help me, Jesus. Help me. So I know that Jesus has been helping me. So I want to encourage you, my brothers and sisters, that we are talking, Jesus is saying, talk like me. Talk like me. The last thing just popped into my mind. My wife, this summer, they wanted summer track shoes. So my daughters, we they want to go every store. We went and they can't find any shoe. So I am so worked out, tired, and driving home, and then my wife called and said, where have you all been all this long? And I said, looking for shoes. And then I think I hung up or something. And then I realized, no, that was not nice. So I called back. I was at Timbergate right here, which is 2 minutes from my house. I called back, and I said, I'm sorry, the way it came out, hanging up on you was not appropriate. Forgive me. But my case will say, Dad, it's like 2 minutes to the house. Why don't you go and talk to her in person? And I said, no. It happened in front of you. I want to apologize in front of you so you know that that was not right. That was not Jesus. You see, that's what we have to be. Go back and make it up. It doesn't make you, it doesn't change you who you are. It actually makes you better because it takes away your burden. You don't carry it alone. Amen. So let's speak like Jesus because Jesus is in us. Thank you, and God bless you all.